So it's Thursday. We all know what that means.
Throwback Thursday, right?
Yep.
And we started a little series, or we kind of continued a little series last Thursday about separating the men from the boys. What traits do professional anglers have that weekend anglers need to kind of get so that they can fish as well as professional anglers?
Yep. Step up with the pros.
Step up with the pros, separate men from the boys, however you want to look at it. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to come up, we've got another area to improve on. We're going to get to that right after this. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher.
I'm Megan Fuller.
So, Megan, what I want to talk about today is the concept of fishing history.
Okay.
What do you think I mean by that? Like back in the old days with Larry Nixon, Denny Brower.
How fishing came to be?
Nope, that's not what I mean at all.
Okay, I don't know.
No. Ray Scott, back in the day, started Bassmaster. No, that's not what I'm talking about at all.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is an angler who goes out after years of fishing and he says, oh, every time I come to this lake, I go over to that little cove and I catch them really good in that cove. And so what does that angler do? Every time he goes on that lake, he goes to that cove.
So that individual person's history.
That individual person's history with where do they fish, what do they fish with, and they always kind of follow that history. And what they kind of get out of that is, oh, well, I caught them good there. Now, they happened upon it. One day they happened upon it. And they came across that cove and they cranked on them in that cove. And then what happened? Ever since that day, they go back to that cove. And if they catch them good, that strengthens that thought process in their head that, boy, that cove's got them. That's a place that I got to go. Okay? They almost changed the narrative to fit their history. So on one day when they go to that cove and it doesn't work, it's like, they must not have been biting that day. Sure enough, the next time they go to the lake, where do they go? Right back to that cove.
Right.
Okay. And they crank on them that day. I knew that cove was it.
So they justify it.
They justify it and they figure, and what they're not looking at is, why did that cove produce on those 3 out of 4 days? Mm-hmm. Well, that cove was shallow water, and the 3 days that you went there that it worked was in the springtime, and it makes perfect sense that those fish were up shallow in the spring. And that one time that you went there, it was fall, or it was a different time of year, or something else was going on, and it didn't work. And instead of looking at why does this work and what's going on, they get wrapped up in, that's an area that I've always caught fish, and so I'm going back there. There are times when I will go back to a place that has been productive if all of the circumstances line up. Hey, my history tells me in the spring, when the weather's like this, or when it's been like this, or when the water's been high, or when the water's been low, that's a place I want to go. Now I'm using that history and going, I think I want to check that out. But I'll be honest, if I'm preparing for a tournament and I've got an area like that I'm saying, hey, the things line up, the characteristics line up to where that would be a good place for me to go, guess where I'm not going to go during practice? Or I'm not going to spend a lot of time in during practice.
The place that you think is going to be really good, because then you're going to be catching all those fish.
Because you're right, I'm going to burn them up when I already have the knowledge that I need to know that's probably going to be a good place for me to go. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to go there at all. I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to kind of put a clock on it and see if I can catch a fish in the first 15 minutes. And if I do, I'm like, yep, they're exactly what I thought they were going to be. And hit the road.
So how do you gather that knowledge? Because I think a lot of times fishermen are probably like, oh, okay, well, I know this place. I feel comfortable here, so I'm going to keep going back to it because I do have that memory, as opposed to, wow, there's this whole lake and I don't know how to gauge those things, so I just do what I know instead of having to go out and try.
And what you're
all these
identifying,
things.
Megan, is perfect, because that's what I'm saying is the difference between the men and the boys. The boys are there to try and maximize today's experience. I'm here to catch fish today, and I know this amount of information about that cove, and I'm just going to work with that amount of information. The men go, hey, I want to get more information, and I might not do as well today because I'm going to fish water that I'm not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
But if I use the knowledge that I gained, hey, that cove worked in the spring when I was doing this because the water level was here and the temperature was here and the sunlight was here, the wind was here, I'm going to look for something similar to that and see if that cove works just as well. It may or it may not. But if it does, now the next time I go, I got 2 places to go instead of just one. Okay?
Yeah.
And if I keep doing that over and over, I've got 10 places to go instead of just one. And not only do I have 10 places to go, but I'm starting to put together the pattern of, hey, in the springtime when it's shallow water and the wind's blowing out of the west, I can do this and I can do that. And I can make assumptions about, that means that there are 3 more coves that I've never been to that would be worth me checking out, because those all fit the same kind of characteristics as that one cove that I had in the very beginning. And that's my point. That's what separates kind of guys who just, I'm going to fish history, I'm going to go out and see how it works, to guys that kind of up that to a level of, I need to be able to go on any body of water, take the information that I've learned on some of my local bodies of water, apply it, and be able to have a decent day of fishing anywhere I go, anytime I go there, and in whatever conditions that I go there, because I've experimented and I've been willing to not be as successful today to gain knowledge for tomorrow.
So last week I talked about how mental fishing is. And so I'm seeing this again with this conversation where it's not just your history, but it's also, you need to learn about weather conditions and patterns and water levels, and I mean, you need to learn how all these things work.
It's
just to go fishing.
It's one of the things about fishing that makes fishing a completely unique sport, in that the number of variables that a golfer has to deal with: how far is the shot, how tall is the grass, is the wind blowing, what's the, is it hot, and where,
right,
the sea level and things like that. Fishermen have to deal with that number of variables plus another 1,000 variables on top of that. And the variables change. They don't, not only do they change every day, every year, they change every minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes us love fishing, because when you unlock that key didn't have 10 little ridges on it to turn the tumblers. It had millions of little ridges, and you figured them all out to the point where you were able to, unlock that key and be more successful than any other angler in the tournament. It's the part that drives us.
Okay, wow. That's really cool. I'm learning so many things on this channel.
Well, and I hope you are too. So if you have, please give us a thumbs up. We got a couple more in this series that we're going to do every Thursday during our Throwback Thursday times. So we'll hit another one next Thursday. If you haven't, guys, please subscribe to the channel. We got between now and this weekend to try and get to 1,000. So really, really, really hope that we do. If you can, guys, share this with a friend, like we talked about earlier, and maybe we can get a couple of your buddies to be subscribers to Mark Fisher Outdoors as well. We'll see you again tomorrow for a very, very exciting Christmas episode. You don't want to miss tomorrow's episode, guys.
No, you don't.
Have a good evening.
Stay channeled.